So, episode 2 of season 1, we see Mary in a much better place than in episode 1, because now she's been cured of or exorcised of all those demons that were controlling her life. We see her in such a much better light in this episode, just going on about having normal interactions with friends and out in society, not being ashamed of herself anymore, having a whole new lease on life, and she's always smiling, and it's just like she looks so great with always smiling, and it's like totally different than when we all saw her when she was obviously being controlled by demons, to the point where she even has the confidence to, for the first time in a long time, host Sabbath dinner, which is like, for the Jewish people, it's the most important event of the week. And she even, like, she's very unsure of herself, and the people who come are encourage her and everything, but she's kind of unsure of herself because she hasn't done this in such a long time. It's like she had abandoned all of the Jewish traditions, having lived previously under the influence of the demon. So now she also runs into Nicodemus out in the streets of Capernaum, who is just amazed of the change in her, and how she's been kind of healed from the demons possessing her. And he's very curious as to who did this, because he himself tried to cure her, and he was unable to do it. And he's very curious about, even asks her who did it, and of course Mary can't really tell him, because Jesus, when never introduced himself to her. He just kind of helped her, and he just went around about, kept going, and they never even talked about who he was or anything like that. So she doesn't really know yet who helped her. But Nicodemus doesn't come, like I said, he's a little bit more open-minded than his fellow Pharisees. He's not threatened or jealous of anyone who is able to do this, to able to accomplish this. He's more curious about it. It's like, because he knows that whatever's going on, whoever this person is, it's someone very important to have been able to help Mary, who's just like in such dire straits. But the main story of this episode is Simon. Like I said, in the first episode, we meet Simon and his brother Andrew and his wife Eden, and the two of them are in very tough financial problems. Their business hasn't been going well. They're fishermen, but they haven't been doing very well, and they've gotten way behind on their taxes, to the point where they're on the verge of losing their business, maybe even losing their house. And so what Simon does is, being in this tough situation, he makes a deal with the local Roman governor, Quintus, to basically betray his own people. And so basically what's going, so in the Jewish tradition, the seventh day of the week is of day of rest. You don't do any work on that day, unless there's some kind of emergency where you have to help someone, but you don't do any work of that. It's a day of rest, and it follows from at the beginning of the Bible, when God created the world in 6 days, and then on the seventh day he rested. So the Jewish people were following that. Seventh day they rest, no work on that. Well, what's happening is some of the fishermen, some of the merchants that were doing, whose main business is fishing, are going out under the cover of night at the day of the Sabbath. Yes, they are breaking the law doing this. They're going out in the cover of night so no one can see them the day of the Sabbath, and whatever they get out of that, whatever haul they bring in, is not taxed, because if you're not supposed to be working on the Sabbath, then nothing you earn, as long as you can hide it, nothing you're not declaring anything that you're earning on that, because obviously it's wrong, so you're not going to be taxed on it. And the Romans know this. The Romans know they're losing out big on this. They don't like it, but they don't know how to find these people. Like I said, the Romans don't know anything about, or don't know much about where the Jewish fishermen go, or their plans or anything like that. So they're having a hard time finding these people. So Simon offers to lead them to these people who are Jewish people that are breaking the law. That these are his own friends, people who he I think even Andrew refers to them as brothers, even though they're not blood brothers, meaning the people he's betraying. They're not blood brothers, but Jewish people often call their neighbors and their friends brothers. And he's totally against it, but Simon feels like he has no choice but to do this, just to get out of the financial problems. So he agrees to betray his own people, which is kind of ironic because that's the main reason why he hates Matthew, who's a tax collector. He hates Matthew so much for seemingly betraying his own people, collecting taxes to give to the Romans, and yet here he is planning on doing the same thing. But I have to say also, one of the main strengths of the show is the casting, which I don't know anything about these actors, but they're so good, so convincing. Person who plays Simon, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it, Shahar Isaac. If anyone out there wants to correct me, please do so. And Andrew Noah James. So the casting is awesome. Simon is going to go ahead and betray these people. Now, when Simon goes up to pay his taxes, he basically tells Matthew, well, I don't owe you anything. I made a deal with Quintus, the Roman governor. I don't owe you anything. So obviously Matthew is very suspicious of this. And he, probably in the best scene of this episode, a very entertaining and amusing scene, is he insists on meeting with Quintus to tell him that he made a bad deal, that Simon has no intention of actually going through with it, and he's kind of like been duped by a Jewish person, and he wants to point that out to him. Now, it's kind of hilarious because the Romans, the Roman reputation is that they've killed people for doing much less than this, to go into their presence and start telling them their business and anything like that. And even Gaius, the Roman soldier who's assigned to Matthew to protect him, because tax collectors need protection and they're hated. But even that guy's like telling Matthew, "Don't do this. You don't want to do this. You don't want to like try to get Quintus angry. You're gonna get yourself killed. You're gonna get me killed." And it's just so hilarious that Matthew has this total lack of self-awareness of how much danger he's putting himself just by insisting on meeting with Quintus. And Quintus is like, looks at it as, instead of being angry, he looks at it as like the situation is so ridiculous that this person is like actually daring to come into his presence and telling him what he did wrong or anything like that. So in a way, Matthew does get lucky because Quintus, he amuses Quintus, and instead of being killed, he kind of just like tells him, "Okay, thank you, I appreciate you bringing this up, and we'll see." Well, he kind of agrees to say, "Okay, we'll see if Simon comes through, and if not, then obviously Matthew is right." And it's just the whole scene between when Matthew comes into his presence and is like telling him, trying to answer his questions, and Quintus is like, "Just skip to the end, stop wasting my time." And Matthew is just like, "Yeah, but you need to know this, and I insist on it." And the whole time, Gaius, the Roman soldier assigned to Matthew, is standing right next to him, just like full of anxiety, thinking that any minute now Quintus is going to order them both killed, and it's really hilarious. But they get away unscathed, and Quintus is more amused than angry. So, and the end of the episode is kind of a little bit of a cliffhanger. We see Simon out there in the middle of the night waiting for the Romans to show up so he can lead them to these his fellow Jewish people out, fishermen, basically to betray them. And it's left like that at the end of the episode, so we don't know what's going to happen. Simon is obviously in between two very difficult situations, and it's like either way he's going to be the results for him are not going to go well. Either he loses his business, maybe even his house, or he betrays his own people. So we'll see what happens at the end. And wait next time for episode 3. See ya.